No, we actually need...
Right, my name's Harry.
My name's Alex.
I'm Alex P.
Yep. And this is our game, Molten Towers, what we like to call the mix-up of the loved game genres. Right, our game is primarily three genres: fighting, simulator and platforming, with also a target audience and a PEGA rating of 12, which Alex will now go into more detail of.
Yeah, we chose that audience because usually a lot of boys and girls tend to play games around that age, rather than some people grow out of games when they're older. But both of those two genders have been targeted by our game because it can appeal to both of them. For boys, which typically violence appeals to more, we have the fighting genre to satisfy that, and for the women we have some character customization which they may like more, but still could like fighting.
Right. Our game is different because we have looked at our target audience, we've looked what they might like. At the moment, they're into, well, all those different memes. So we have a selection of different character skins that are potentially, well, memes. So these will appeal to that age limit, and of course it'll get them to want to play our game, because unlike other games, we have different set challenges in order to unlock these skins, which adds more completion to the game and adds optional extras that you can go out and find.
Our game setting and background is that it's set in a happy theme park in the present day, in a bright, cheery atmosphere, and there are some photos here of what that might look like. The top right is an impression of one of the levels. There are some sounds in here, obviously. There are just typical theme park sounds, and there are some sounds with our theme, which is volcanoes and molten lava. So the sounds that can be heard are busy crowds and erupting volcanoes. The story and characters of the game is that there's an attempted train heist, and the train is carrying some very valuable cargo. So a crew of heist members have redirected the train to go through an experimental theme park which has a very, very long roller coaster. And on that train is our two main characters, the train guard and the train driver. Oh, it's not the conductor.
Is it a conductor?
No.
That's what I thought it was.
It's not conductor. On the train are also some NPC passengers, which one of them looks like this. This is a person wearing a hoodie with both their hands in their pockets, but there are many, many more passengers. We just didn't have enough room to fit all of those on the PowerPoint. One of the enemies too is here as well. We do have a lot of enemies, but that is the most basic enemy type, which will appear mainly in the lower levels, but in small numbers in the later on levels.
Inspirations for our game is based on nostalgia of games we grew up playing, such as like Super Mario, which is like the platforming part of the game, and Street Fighter, obviously the violence and fighting of the game. We chose this because we had our childhoods were like based on like these games, so we thought, why won't the new generations like these types of games as well? That is why, and that is where we drew our inspiration from in the creation of the game. Yeah.
Let's just go back and explain to me the inspiration, because the only thing you said was just the nostalgia bit.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go into detail, because you've got on top.
Oh yeah, the character inspiration of like the train driver. Oh sorry.
Yep.
Go too fast. Is from a movie that I enjoyed when I was younger, which is Polar Express, and the train driver in that. So I drew the train driver of our character based on the design of that cheerful driver in the movie.
Exactly.
Sorry. And
the inspiration for NPCs is based
No,
off of...
Alex, I think you're doing
Sorry.
really well, Alex. You're doing really, really well. You're doing great.
Sorry.
No, you take your time.
We. What has gone blank?
Do you want to come back to the slide?
I mean, like, come back later.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
The gameplay mechanics of our game is that they can be played in 2-player multiplayer, with the core mechanics being jumping, fighting, and scoring, with the jumping and fighting being from the fighting genre of our game, which was inspired by the older games mentioned before this. And the goal of each level is to reach the end of the section of the track, because it's a really long roller coaster. They're all connected. Like, it's multiple roller coasters that are all connected. There are some challenges in the game to add variety and replayability and difficulty for the more experienced players, which are usually, there are some more, but most of them are just time trials to complete the game as fast as possible, which can encourage reckless playing, which adds more difficulty to the game. And rewards for completing these trials are actually new outfits and trains. Some of the new outfits were shown earlier in the slide to appeal to the younger demographic that we've chosen. The game does have 5 levels in total. It's not very many, but it allows us to put a lot of detail into the backgrounds of the levels and to design the gameplay very, very well. And more mechanics are that as the game goes on, the difficulty of the levels increases, and as more difficult to defeat enemies are introduced, we balanced it out by adding weapons which do increase in strength in each level, so that the enemies which have higher health can be defeated easier, but still very difficult. And because of this, some addiction might occur, which would be good for us because it would mean more people would play our games. And this addiction could be from people wanting to try and get the best score on a level, or to get hit the lowest amount of times by enemies, or to do it in the fastest time possible.
Our visual style is based, because our target demographic is of 12 and upwards, we decided for like a cartoon style of like visuals. That is why like the concept art of our characters are like not very like realistic, and very cartoony, which I believe that if I was like 12 and younger, I would enjoy playing the game, as it's not made too serious, and it should be like a game's like calm down while playing. And you can go on to the next slide.
Right, so here we are. Right, here we are. Any other interesting features? Now, our game is primarily on PC, and it will be sold exclusively on the Microsoft Store. Now, we want that so we can have a better relationship with our customers and with our game players, so that way we can control where it's sold and how it operates. Also, we are going to have a Twitter account set up, so that will show behind the scenes footage of how we make the game and how the process goes, so that possibly others can learn from us and perhaps in the future make games of their own. Also, something new we've come up with would be every so often there will be a set challenge on that you'll be paired up with a random other player who will be playing against either the guard or the driver. You'll be competing against other guards and drivers, and whoever can get the best time on that track will win.
Other interesting points are the weapons that we have drawn and thought of. These will be level based, so you can't go to the lower levels with the higher tier weapons and complete them with faster times, which makes the game fairer for like people who don't rush to like complete the levels or want to explore like the whole level. Most of the weapons are all melee, so there's time where you have to go towards the enemies, which makes the time more like the main factor of how fast you can defeat the level. The better weapons will be gained by the times that were mentioned on the previous slides. Also, for the price of this game, we would like maybe a range of like £30 to £40 with sales going on for the bank holidays, which will be decided at the chosen holiday seasons.
This is the last slide.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, if we can just go back to
Yeah, if we can go back to game setting and background first, can you just explain to me which settings are going to maybe be the fighting, or can you tell me the different atmospheres that are going to be?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that some parts of it are set in the current functioning park, which is open, and some parts of it are set in under construction areas which don't have customers and have a more bleak atmosphere because there's not a lot of colours on. Most of like the fairground attractions in the background aren't turned on. There's no flashing lights. The sounds there are still busy crowds. It's crowds of workers, and the exploding volcano sounds are still there because all of the rides are volcano themed. And there is another one which is the last level, which is underground roller coasters, which is very dark, and that adds more challenges to the actual gameplay because the entirety of the level isn't visible all the time. Only a short way in front of the train is visible, which is to add to the tense atmosphere that comes on at the last level. So it's the most difficult.
Great. If we can now go to visual style and concept art.
That's bad.
No, it's not. It's four.
Great. Can you tell me or explain sort of what kind of objects, the style of the architecture, style, that kind of thing?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so can you explain with regards to how you want the objects, how you want everything to look? Now, you mentioned it was cartoon, but can you give some examples of the specific cartoons?
It's cartoony in the terms that, like, because of the age range, we don't want like blood, like gore, like splatter. So we want like cartoons as like when they are fighting, like it seems unreal, like not unrealistic, but not real, like how pain is like.
Okay, no, that's fine. All right, thanks, guys.